चलिए शुरू करें. I went to an MBA college and the first question I asked there was, what do cow give? गाय क्या देती है? Or what does buffalo give? अगर cow की बात नहीं करनी है आजकल तो. What does cow give? Milk, right? And what does a business give? Profit, returns. And that's where the difference between an experienced person and an MBA grad comes in. The cow doesn't give milk, you have to milk the cow, right? And business doesn't give profit, you have to get profit out of it. Now that's fundamentals. We're not here for the fundamentals that we did last year when we did starting a business and startups, but this time we're going to talk about growth strategies. And that's where we are here for, the scaling up and the growth part of it, just not starting up. And for that, the first major question comes up is, what are the strategies and models where we can really look at growing or scaling up? Vikash did the initial part of it where he talked about a certain few strategies, but let's dive deeper into it. And I open this with any one of you who would like to bring in that one strategy which is very close to your heart about growth or scaling up a business.
One thing basically which is close and maybe peculiar to my business is basically the collaboration. And when I talk about collaboration, it's not only restricted to the core skill set which I may be possessing, but with a broader spectrum of services which might make sense when offered jointly with what I am offering as of now. So collaborations with the industry experts, collaborations with the technology companies, maybe audit is core to me or accounting is core to me, collaboration with the law firms, which really enables me to take a bouquet of relevant products to my clients. So I think collaboration is the key for me as of now.
True. I come from a city called as Pune, where we have that board which says, Amchi kutehi shakha nahi. That is, we do not have any other branch, right? And when we talk about collaboration, that is something which really is the opposite of what we say as scaling up. And people are proud to not scale up, but mergers and acquisitions is something which is one of the ways that we heard about scaling up. Kailash ji would like to add something to that. How or what are the challenges or what somebody has to be careful while you're doing the mergers and acquisitions and scale up?
Sure, thank you. So I have been part of a number of mergers, and I would like to share 3 mergers of which I have been part of, and the learnings and the reflections I have from them. So the first merger or acquisition, in fact all these were acquisitions. The first acquisition I was part of was way back in 2012-13 when I was on the acquirer side. And the acquisition was of a entity in India belonging to a Fortune 500 group. When we started the diligence, or even before we started the diligence, what was coming out as a very important characteristic was the kind of investment the company had done into preparing for the document which will be shared with the acquirers. They had probably not left anything to chance, or there would not be any surprise in the process. They had done their own diligence. They had prepared a document which was all inclusive, and therefore when the process of, while usually when we will work with the multinationals, the process will be very long because they are very, very particular about each sentence which goes into an agreement. The process was very smooth. Now I come to the second acquisition, which was a much smaller acquisition, sub 100 crore. And what surprised me was that there would not be adequate amount of preparation. There would not be compliances, so much of regard for compliances. There would not be transparency in the way the bookkeeping is kept. And therefore, while it is a small acquisition, it will end up taking as much time or even more. And there would be surprises which keep coming, even after the acquisition is complete. And the third one was where I got acquired. I was part of Magma FinCorp, and it was acquired by Adar Poonawalla Group. And to everyone's surprise and surprise of those who are in Big Four was that this was done in a period of less than 30 days. It was a transaction of 3,400 crore rupees, but transaction was completed in less than 30 days. And what did stand out there? I would put 3-4 things. One, it was a regulated entity. So when you have regulated entity, many things. And Vikash just spoke about Paytm, and maybe we will discuss more about it. When you are regulated, most of the things are in public domain. You have to make a little bit of effort, and you can know that, yes, this entity is doing very well. The regulator does not have any concern. The second was the kind of governance you practice. And Vikas again briefly touched upon this in his presentation. Our board had 50% independent directors plus 2 investor nominees. So the kind of grind we would have to go through would, I am sure, definitely helped us. So what do I, from all these 3, what do I take away are? Number 1 would be the corporate governance. Number 2 would be compliances. Number 3 will be bookkeeping. And number 4 would also be the kind of risks and risk mitigation processes we have. So sorry for that long answer, but thank you.
Thank you. That was elaborate and not from the theory books, huh? Especially coming from a practical experience that you document what you really do and keep it truthful, keep it correct, authentic. Let's move on to
I would just like to add on to this mergers and acquisitions. Basically, whenever we are doing any merger, acquisition or restructuring, we should be very clear on the objective actually. It can be for a specific purpose. Either I want to acquire or merge an entity for a technology purpose, or for market expansion, or for scale, or I get a ready access to market, so on and so forth actually. I was lucky to be a part of, during my initial career days when I was a part of the ITC Treasury, to acquire a company which was into potato seeds actually. You know, the objective was very clear that when we are acquiring this company, it's for a specific purpose that we wanted to integrate and have a backward linkage to our bingo chips business actually at that point of time. But when we are acquiring, we have never gone overboard on valuations actually, because it creates a lot of excitement when you acquire a company that yes, because there's an adrenaline rush, everybody is very excited, suddenly you see a top line, bottom line, everything coming up. But if the valuations, etc. are not correct, then you get into a soup actually after 5 years, 10 years period of time, when the honeymoon is over basically. You know, even as part of ITC Foods, when I later part got into ITC Foods new business, we evaluated a lot of acquisitions, categories, proposals. Every day almost we used to do one analysis or something. But we were very clear why I want to acquire. There have been acquisitions where we have said that, sir, if you give me 500 crores to acquire, very well give me that money, I can spend that on marketing and get that business. Then why do I acquire a new brand and get into all of that actually? So it's been a very conscious decision when we have done an acquisition. And off late in Tega, we recently acquired McNally. Again, the objective was very clear that yes, we are into mining consumables and we want to get into the equipment space because it's a big $30 billion industry. And that's where we see a lot of potential. Again, it's both a forward and backward integration for us, because McNally was also a customer for us when they used to buy consumables. And being in the same industry, same customer, we see a lot of potential. But again, valuations, it has to be the right valuation. The company has to come clean. Like Sir rightly said, due diligence and governance has to be given definitely weightage. And after all that evaluation, I think we should definitely go for any restructuring acquisition, whatever we feel like.
Thank you. So from mergers and acquisitions, the next part which comes in is how do you really integrate that to be successful? And learning and development, I believe, plays a very important role of looking at cultural integration, maybe even branding, communication. Furqanji, your views about what should be the role of some learning development part which comes in when you're really looking at mergers and acquisitions?
So I think the most important aspect is cultural integration, because there are many, success stories as well as, there are many failures because of this particular reason. Company A acquiring company B, company A stands at a very different culture level, and company B, at a very different level. And if this is not being taken care of, as soon as possible, or I should say that even at the planning stage of acquisition, this can really go, against the entire plan. So cultural integration, I believe, is the most important aspect.
True. Cultural integration, any more on the technology or the technical aspect which comes in place, sir, if you would like to add something on those lines when it comes to processes and practices?
Whenever we do any acquisition, I think the expectations are very high. I think there is what we do the immediate mistake actually. The vision should be big. Definitely you have an objective why you have done that restructuring or acquisition. But the objective should be very clear and the timeline should be very clear. Overnight things can't be done actually. Because it's like integration or the marriage between two people. It's like an integration between two organizations who have a completely different DNA. We may even talk about an ITC or livers, both FMCG space or even a Marico, for example. Everybody in the FMCG space, but the way every organization works actually is different from the other actually. So I think for a successful integration to happen, we need to give time. We need to completely understand the DNA. We need to unlearn and relearn a lot of things actually, because there is a way of doing things in both the organizations. I am not commenting which is right, which is wrong. But we should, even if we are the acquirer, we should be very clear that I should be ready to accept things and even learn from the acquiring company actually. It should not always be that I am the boss, I have acquired you and I want things to be done in this way and it should be done. And trust factor is very important because people are the asset. They should be first made comfortable, stable in the new regime. And once that clicks in, you have got ample opportunities and you can leverage a lot of opportunities to scale up things. But yes, I think time should be given, clear, definite path should be made, and we should work on that trajectory to make this integration a successful one.
Thank you. So we are going deep into mergers and acquisitions. We're talking about cultural integration. We are talking about learning from the acquiree as well, just not by the acquirer, getting into practices, processes, compliance and governance. Does that also change a lot with mergers and acquisition? So.
Definitely, see, compliance and governance, I think, is the core when you go for merger and acquisitions. The examples what Kailash has given for 3 kind of acquisitions that he has been part of, where in the second one, we can see there must be problems with the governance part, whereas the last one has a very good governance part. So when a good governed acquirer is going for an acquisition, they will always look for companies which has already good governed. And good governance definitely gives value. Because then there can be a very little chance of failures. Like the examples of Paytms and PhonePe that we were just discussing. So definitely when we are going for any kind of acquisitions, mergers, we should look at commonality of governance, at least commonality, not the superior part, because even if the acquirer is good governed and the acquiree is less governed, still the acquirer can bring in more governance into the acquiree so that a better valuation can be formed going forward.
Thank you. So we talked about a lot of inorganic growth strategy, that is mergers and acquisitions. Any organic growth strategies which you would like to add upon as to in business when businesses are growing?
Sure. So I'd just start from where, sorry, Krishna ji left. Yeah. When we say corporate governance, what is the deeper meaning of corporate governance? So let's see an entity which is invested by a private equity. What would they look for? It is the quality of presentation which is made to the audit committee and board, because that's where they have most of the interactions. Now, once you have a private equity on board, the amount of effort one has to make into making the presentations which will satisfy the investors, external investors, is significantly superior. And that actually gives one the opportunity to work on and find what is working, what is not working, where improvements can be, and then be prepared for what is presented. So the audit committee board presentations are a springboard for creating the knowledge, the experience, and looking at what is working, what is not working, and therefore what should be the next steps. I would think that the corporate governance and compliances provide us a significant opportunity even when we are organically growing. So what had happened in case of Paytm, and this is known to almost everyone. I am surprised that what happened with Paytm actually happened, because we know that RBI is clearly not comfortable with a nexus between business and the banks. That's the reason the RBI has not given any license to any of the industrialists in India. Now, here was a case where Paytm was completely integrated with Paytm Bank. And that's what the RBI does not allow. In fact, RBI does not allow you to be, when you have to have an insurance company, then also RBI asks for huge amount of compliances. The reason is RBI is worried of contagion risk. What has happened in Paytm saga is actually an entirely contagion risk. I mean, you may say 1,000 people had same PAN number. This used to be very common maybe 10 years back or 15 years back. But there has been gradual improvement, and RBI's oversight has significantly increased. And therefore, completely letting Paytm Bank integrate with Paytm was a complete no-no. It should never have happened. And Paytm actually grew on the back of Paytm Bank, knowing very well that this should not be done. And I'm sure RBI would have given 1 warning, 2 warning, 3 warning. And for some reason, some arrogance somewhere may have crept in, which, or somewhere in the board level, when RBI gives a observation letter, it has to be placed to the board. And therefore, board is also completely in the knowledge. And board has to come down and will come down very heavily on the management that this is not done. So what happened, I am very surprised. But in organic growth also, and I'm speaking maybe too much on corporate governance, but corporate governance is the key to many of the things which institution, if practices, will open doors for orderly, short growth. Thank you.
That's wonderful, isn't it? That governance can lead to growth, wherein many of us find it that governance restricts growth. कि आप दबाव डाल रहे हो, रोक रहे हो, तो हम grow नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. But if governance could be such that it multiplies growth, that would be something really useful for both RBI and Paytm, if I may just.
Even for investors.
Yeah, even
and
for investors.
And for the public at large.
And for the public as large.
The public are the investors.
True.
That is why we say about non-compliance, just try it and see the cost of non-compliance.
True. You would like to add some more?
You were talking about an organic growth story.
Yeah.
I'll give you my personal this thing. When I was a part of the ITC Foods, we forayed into dairy actually, And we are one of the few large corporates into fresh dairy, which runs as a profitable fresh dairy business actually, because of the complexities of the business and the margins involved there. Big wigs like even Reliance tried it, but it did not work out. But touch wood, God's grace, ITC Fresh Dairy is a profitable venture. Now the first day when we sold 80 liters of milk, 80 to be precise. That even in a village of Bihar, which is Munger. And today that same team sells more than 2 lakh liters per day actually. So when the dairy was set up, it was set up with a different ambition that yes, we can sell a lot of milk powder. We can sell a lot of milk powder because SMP or the milk powder is a very key ingredient in almost all food products, whether it's biscuits, noodles, so on and so forth. But then somewhere we realized that SMP prices are more of a trading commodity and it does not work out actually. So at that point of time we realized that if dairy has to work out, fresh dairy has to be a component. We just can't work on the fat, that is the ghee or the butter, and the SMP portion actually. And that is how the fresh dairy was born. But over a period of time, we realized, we learned the nuances of the trade, and from scratch we set up that business. From some 30,000 of billing for the first couple of weeks, today we do more than 60-70 lakhs, a crore bill on a daily basis, even on bad days actually. So this is a classic example of an organic growth story where something was built from scratch. The entire trade was learnt, and the connect with the farmers was established for the milk procurement. And everything in detail was figured out and complied till the last day actually. And the best part, why this organic growth story became a success, was that everyone in the team, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's ops, whether it's finance, we were not different verticals actually. We were all one actually. So किसी ने ये नहीं बोला कि बस आज sales invoice करना है तो कौन करेगा? If finance team was not there, sales guys used to do the this thing. Collections, you will not believe, in COVID days, we have, because dairy is a business where you just can't give credit actually because of the supply chain issues. If you give a credit, it's a bad debt and you have lost that customer forever. So you will not believe, everyone in the part of the team, there were restrictions on movement. So lane to lane, people have said, I am collecting cash at this point, I am going to hand over at point B. From point B to point C, you take it over. Irrespective of function, irrespective of the hierarchy in the organization. So if we want to make an organic growth story successful, I think team collaboration, what we discussed earlier, and that purpose and the feeling that yes, we are on a mission and we have to do something really matters, and that's what turns around actually. When I was a part of the ITC Foods, my counterparts or my friends in other categories, which were established brand, used to say, "तुम्हारा तो turnover ही उतना नहीं है जितना हमारा marketing spend होता है एक साल का." True. And in a span of 3 years, we turned around the table, and dairy became the most talked about category in not only ITC Foods but even ITC boardroom actually.
Awesome. So I'll just confirm, 80 liters on day one.
80 liters, 80.
80 to
Yeah.
60 to 70 lakh liters per day.
2 lakh liters per day.
2 lakh liters per day. So from 80 liters to 2 lakh liters per day, like the spring, right, becoming a river and a sea. Yeah, the beginnings are really small. My added question to it now is, if a Doodhwala has to compete with ITC, or a small dairy has to compete with a big giant at ITC, what are those things that somebody should do so as to be relevant and be in the market? You just can't kill all small entrepreneurs or professional people who are doing that and growing big.
I'll put up a question actually. How many of us know Dr. A.K. Patel and Mr. Chandupata Jagan Reddy? The claim to fame for these two people. With no political biases, these were the two MPs of BJP in 1984. So a small guy with two MPs, the then Prime Minister, saying that hum do hamare do, mocking them. Today they are talking out, ab ki baar 400 par. So that talks about the strength of a small player who can make it big actually.
Wow. So any strategies, any thoughts that, sir, Kailash ji, Krishna ji would like to add for professionals who want to grow big, who want to scale up, any things that come?
Sure. And when,
Sharad.
Sharadji was discussing, something interesting came to my mind. And this is slightly going into a different track. Is that when mergers, acquisitions happen, there are two teams working, there is maybe someone at a higher pedestal, someone at a lower pedestal, and then we just sit back and reflect. All of us go through that 4 steps of being unconscious incompetence, to conscious incompetence, to conscious competence, and then finally to unconscious competence. We all go through that. And the final is, which is unconscious competence, is the mastery. And we will very easily relate if we take a experience of learning driving. पहले दिन हमें नहीं मालूम होता है क्लच गियर क्या होता है. Then we get learn, we know that clutch gear क्या होता है. Third होता है कि हम clutch gear जानते हैं और उसको चला भी पाते हैं, और finally चला रहे हैं और phone पे बात भी कर रहे हैं. And this happens with all the organizations, every individual, that we take this journey. And our the responsibility of leadership is to assess कि who is at what stage in this journey. Not be judgmental कि ये क्या कर रहा है, ये क्यों कर रहा है, ये इसको तो आता नहीं है. That's being judgmental. But if we sit back and see where he is, he or she is in his or her journey, and then facilitate this transition from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. That's what the leadership is about. And this is relevant even when two organizations are working. And I will take an example of a non-banking finance company. When we recruit someone who is fresh, absolutely fresh, उन्हें class 12वीं किया होगा, and we take him into our organization and make him as a collector. So he has to collect money from the loans which we have given. This is a field work. And the day one when they join, and most of these are junior level employees, so they would not have any of the skills which are required. Now, if we ensure that they transition this journey, so the employees who does not know anything today, in a year's time, he will have mastery in the way things has to happen. And the last point which I'd like to make is that we all know that the solution to every problem lies within this problem. उसके बाहर कहीं नहीं है. Problem, we may be one overawed by the problem at initially, but if we have to find a solution, we go to the next stage, then the next stage. जितना deep जाएंगे उसका solution मिलना ही मिलना है. Competence तो हम सभी में है. Everyone has competence. थोड़े से जो these tricks of learning and the patience to get into a problem and finding a solution. If we can do this, and if we can involuntarily or make people think about all these, then we can make the masters, anybody who is a novice, the masters. So thank you. Sorry, I took a detour.
Yeah.
One more example I would like to share. When I was with Atria Act FiberNet, those of you in South know ACT as a brand who have worked in Bangalore, Hyderabad. We are the largest non-telco wired broadband player actually. And when Jio launched its plans, a lot of people came up to us and said, boss, now you are off. You are wiped out. But we will not believe, since Jio has launched in, we have moved strength to strength, pillar to pillar. And we have retained our market share across geographies where we are operating, 35 to 40 market share across the cities where we operate. And it's only about when you have to take a biggie like Reliance or someone like that, it's about the commitment and it's about the service what you give. Because you have to ensure that your customers have that value proposition when you give them a service or any offering for that matter actually. So 98.8 plus uptime and resolutions within 18 hours to 24 hours. That has led to ACT's growth story. And we even have an app whereby if customer wants to disconnect the ACT service for whatever reason, we have even given that facility to the customer. So in case the customer disconnects for whatever reason, dissatisfaction, and he wants to come back, he says, hey, I have an honest service provider here who gives me this flexibility, and he comes back to the ACT fold even if he has moved out. So it's about commitment, it's about the value proposition which makes the difference actually. And obviously if the customers find value, the business grows, stakeholders all grow, and everybody makes a killing out there.
I really love that point, that even if you're competing with a giant on something, you don't have to compete with what they are good at. If they're good at price, you can compete at something which is very close to you, it's your niche. And that's something which is, we talked about value, you talked about being committed, being transparent and saying, jab disconnect karna hai, kar lo, jab wapis aana hai, aa jao, which even biggies don't.
Yeah, and regarding organic growth, we ourselves are an example, Vikram Solar. So when we started in 2006, we started with a capacity of 1 megawatt per month. And with our vision and being there in the market, focusing on the quality and our customer, now we have reached 300 megawatt a month. So we are focused on our strength. So basically, to be successful on an organic growth, I think we should work on our strengths. We have also worked on various channels, like to grow in solar module manufacturing, we have used the channel of going into power generation also at a given point of time. But it is also important to realize that the channel that you are using is that also a part of your organic growth. And if you find that the resources that you have are not appropriately used in the channel that you are using for your organic growth, you should take a call at a given point of time. That is what we did. So to showcase our product and to showcase our efficiency, we use solar power generation as a tool for a certain period of time. And then we decided to come out of solar power generation and focused again on manufacturing only.
Wonderful. Does government policies or something really help growth, like something which was announced very recently in the budget about solar things?
See again, the sector we are into a sustainable sector. So it is always driven by the government policies, because without government policy support, it is very difficult to grow on a sector which is too costly to start with. So if we go back to 2006, we have seen solar modules selling at $2 a watt. And now the solar modules are selling at 20 cents a watt. We have seen solar power being sold at 18 rupees per unit, and now solar unit is the cheapest source of power, currently selling at rupees 2 per watt. So this has happened because the complete support from the government, because it's a renewable energy and this is replacing fossil fuel. So definitely government policies are required to drive. And now the government is supporting manufacturing in a good way in India. So they have imposed various duties so as to promote domestic manufacturing and to work towards moving away from China, basically. Our industry is completely dependent upon China. So government is working internally to create the infrastructure so that we come out of China.
Nice.
Just, I had a small discussion with Krishna ji on the sideline, and here is a company which last year had a turnover of 2,000, this year planning 3,000, next year 5,000 crore. 2,000 crore, 3,000 crore, and then 5,000 crore. And into renewable energy. So the company Vikram Solar needs 3 cheers. It is homegrown from Bengal.
And our sponsors too. Yeah. So moving to the right of you, sir, Furqan, growth with policy support, with a good attitude of collaboration, learning and development. Does it grow despite certain restrictions, as you must have seen somewhere in EY or any places, regulatory authorities stopping you, been with some?
So, so most of our firms are basically regulated in. So definitely, but since we talked about professional services firms and growth, and especially the organic growth, so I would like to share my own example in this sense. I lead the learning solution practice. We set this up in 2015. At that point in time, only accounting and reporting was the core to us. And these were the only products which we used to take to the market. And within a span of a year or two, we ended up into a situation wherein the L&D starts talking about wider portfolio. So as you mentioned about the dairy business, we were pushed to have more and more products into the kitty, and that was the point wherein we decided to have almost everything in finance domain into our training portfolio. That's the first point wherein we were pushed as a team to integrate more with the wider EY service lines, so that we have beyond accounting products also in the finance domain. So that's one of the key. Networking within the organization is a key for the professional services firm. And then suddenly after a year, we started realizing that the client started talking about training beyond finance. And that was an era of analytics, and technology. And all of us were chartered accountants, we were not having very precise answer or response to the client need. But we finally took that call that we have to build that up. And there the regulation comes up. The way we are structured, I cannot go into the analytics domain, create a product and do it, and then the personal competency also becomes a problem. So the other message is that you have to continue learning as being part of the professional services firm. You have that challenge to, you have to be a continuous learner. You cannot just stick to what you know. You have to go with the market need. And there we build our capability around the analytics and technology trainings and build up that portfolio. Again, we talked about internal networking, but here we invested a lot of time and effort to collaborate. As I mentioned earlier also, as of now, I work with more than 250 professionals across domain. These are technology gurus, these are analytics gurus, these are obviously yes, chartered accountants, etc. definitely are there. But these are pure consultant, very well known for their specific skill set in analytics, in technology, and they enable us to go and deal with the clients in an effective manner and with a lot of confidence. So that networking wherein you collaborate with people with a different skill set to create a portfolio or a product which is more relevant for your client. So that is another very important aspect as far as professional services firms are concerned.
Awesome. So professional services, many people here who are there, growth is not limited. Don't worry about competition, but yes, collaborate, find different skill set, integrate them through networking, and then yes, you could compete with the best, even with EY. Yeah. And we have some important and senior guests as well here. ITC, Mr. D. Ashok, Tata Steel, Mr. Ankit Bagre. May I invite, if you have some inputs, can we just send a mic across, please, about growth strategies, if you would like to add something as we continue our discussion. Can I request a volunteer to do that? And as we progress, we're going to go a step more further about ESG and other governance things as well. Sir.
Vikash has caught me. I wanted to be obscure here. No, I think I heard Sharad Khetan speaking about ITC. He has summed up nicely what we have been doing all these years. And what he didn't say, though he has left ITC, is ITC is very choosy. When he talked about we evaluated a target every day. When I was head of M&A, hundreds of targets we would have been seeing, but especially investment bankers like Java is sitting next to me, very, very desperate. Because we have to see for the right strategic fit. I was looking for the word from the panelists. See, strategic fit, sounds very esoteric, that encompasses everything in an acquisition, if it is an acquisition. And in a large organization like ITC, building a common objective within the team is also very difficult. I remember one of those deals, we were about to sign off the D-Day, we were in Bombay, we were acquiring from an MNC. The operating head who was sitting here, he's a senior manager, suddenly felt uncomfortable. So we in ITC, 2 people sign everything. It's a maker-checker concept. Okay, one from corporate finance is head of M&A, I went to sign the document. One from the business guy. The business guy got a call, don't sign. Because we have not got some information which we expected from the seller. I'm saying the last minute, we are sitting in a boardroom, some 15, 20 people, lawyers on both sides, all sitting there. Suddenly this guy walks out, saying my boss is telling don't sign off. So these kind of unforeseen emergencies which happen also we have to handle when you handle M&A. Because there you are obeying to your boss not for the organization's name, goodwill, what we are looking for, what is the objective for which we are doing the acquisition. So I had to call his boss, who is a senior man for me, say this is the objective with which you are going ahead, and if you are looking for one small data, what you are saying, I give a guarantee I'll get this for you. Allow him to sign. He was very uncomfortable, so I had to escalate to my director and say, I'm going ahead and signing. He said, go ahead. So we have to take that call. Some stage, I just talked of an aberration like this, but bringing in uniformity and unity of thought within the team. And once we are clear about the strategic fit, and it needs a clearance from the top, if it is an acquisition or even a restructuring. We are currently in the midst of a restructuring. We know how many moving parts are involved. It's a large kind of business which we are talking of demerging. It involves a lot of such uncertainties, and but still we have to handle and move ahead because the objective is clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. Important, yes, the strategy and the strategic fit. If that is not really happening, why are you actually merging or why are you acquiring? True. Mr. Ankit is outside. Chaliye. So we come back to the panel, and from growth we get into governance. And one interesting word that is coming up is ESG, which we are talking about. ESG, is it really a fad or does it really help businesses? Who would like to go first? Krishna Kumarji.
I feel it do help businesses. I think it does not only help businesses, I think it should be one of the key pillar for a business to grow. So ESG, we are talking about environmental, we are talking about social, and then we are talking about governance. So we already have spoken a lot on governance. So I think we are left with 2 parts. One is environmental and other one is social. So we all belong to the society. We all belong to the Mother Earth. So I think environmental is the core, means wherein we all have to see the environment we are into. We are taking off from the environment, and to live in the environment for us and for our generation to come. So we have to focus on environment. So environment is important, and the way we are using the resources of the environment, we need to work on protecting the resources of the environment. We need to work on pollution control. We need to work upon the wastages that we are doing in our productions, and many other factors on the environment. And I think so is the case with social. Social is people. So no people, I think, Without people, none of the businesses can even run, be it service or be it manufacturing, whatever. So we need to focus on social, we need to focus on environment, and it is not a myth. Now, means the investors are currently focusing on ESG. Means one of the criteria of selecting a company to invest into is how compliant the company is with ESG. Earlier people used to invest only with the purpose of return. They were not focusing how the company is giving the return. What the company is doing with their money, where they are investing, where they are spending their money. But now the first criteria that the investors look at it, are their money going into ethical use? Is their money being used for a responsible purpose? So I am with the idea of ESG is the most important pillar for a growth of a company, for the valuation of the company.
So is ESG entering into the balance sheet as well somewhere? Does it reflect on the P&L statements as well, where CS could look at it and say, yeah, this is...
So currently, there are various entities which are doing the ESG scores. In our annual reports, we are using those ESG scores. We are displaying those the ESG scores, and also we are writing what the company is doing on the part of the ESG, and yeah, definitely that gives insight to all the stakeholders.
Just to add to what Mr. Krishna shared, and in response to your first question, so ESG, so it's no more an ethical obligation, right? The way there's a shift from corporate social responsibility to strategic sustainability is happening in the corporate. I think, that is because of the ESG requirements, the way the regulations are being framed up and coming to India. I think we are slightly behind the world as far as ESG is concerned. I think businesses will not have any option, to continue with that corporate social responsibility kind of the agenda. At the end of the day, you have to actually build that strategic sustainability into your business model, and it has to be end to end. It's not like that you are doing an event or an or something, one exercise or two. It has to be built into your business model right from the start till the end.
Yeah. One point which comes to, and I have just gone through a ESG exercise, and one very important point is that we are not conscious. And when we go through the ESG exercise, this detailed ESG framework which is there, and we go through the exercise, what improves is the consciousness. हमें मालूम नहीं है कि हम क्या कर रहे हैं. When we know that we can do this, then we would be volunteering that हाँ ये तो करना चाहिए. जैसे वाटर मीटरिंग, अब आपको मालूम ही नहीं है कि आप पानी कितना वेस्ट कर रहे हो, कितना कंज्यूम कर रहे हो, और आइडियल क्या कंज्यूम करना चाहिए. जब मालूम नहीं है तो कुछ होता नहीं है. Like this, there are maybe 100, 200 points, जिसमें 50, 60, 70 हमें मालूम ही नहीं कि हम क्या कर रहे हैं. Going through the exercise, the most beautiful part was that we become aware. Once we are aware, then धीरे धीरे हमारे कॉन्शियस में भी आना लगता है कि ये करना चाहिए और ये नहीं करना चाहिए. And that has significant amount of, that makes a significant amount of difference.
Just one example I would like to give. Sir ने जो बताया about consciousness. In a canteen, a board was put up that we are wasting X kg of food. You will not believe the number of people didn't come down. Food consumption per se didn't come down, but the wastage just came down actually. So it's all about consciousness. And one point in the ESG I would just like to highlight, when I do my negotiation with my foreign customers, etc., definitely they are ready to pay you a premium even if you are an ESG compliant manufacturer actually. So yes, ESG is there, will be there, and it's our duty towards not only the environment and the social objectives, governance, yes, we have spoken about it, but it also adds to your top line and bottom line, because people are now ready to vouch for that and give you that premium if you are more ESG compliant than your competitor actually.
In our industry, ESG is so important. So when we are selling our product to the customer, we need to ensure that the raw materials that we are buying, those raw materials are not being produced in a region where forced labors are being used.
Wow.
So that kind of commitment we have to give to our customers.
Right, that's what I wanted to highlight. So if we see organizations like Microsoft or Infosys, 2 points which I would like to highlight. One, in their entire ecosystem, be it you are a customer to them or a vendor to them or an employee, sustainability or ESG learning has been embedded in such a way, and the requirement has been, publicized in such a way that you don't have an option. You have to comply with them. Secondly, as sir mentioned, if you see the success stories, if we talk about Infosys, or maybe if we talk about Mahindra and Mahindra, it's basically the consciousness of the employees which has really helped them to add significant to their top line as well as bottom line, both. There are many examples of bottom line, wherein the employee consciousness has played significant role, especially in Mahindra and Infosys.
Thank you. That's interesting.
Can I add something here?
Yes, please.
I mean, when we talk about the consequences of not following ESG, it's a very interesting thing. I'm sure many of us are aware how Bangladesh had grown tremendously on account of how apparels are made in Bangladesh, right? Now, one incident where there's one production facility in Bangladesh that caught fire, and it was discovered that most of the workers working in that facility were young kids, and they were not eligible to work from a global standards perspective. That single incident really changed the way the Western world looked at Bangladesh from a apparel manufacturing country, right? So not following ESG standards can have grave consequences, even as a country, forget about an organization per se, right? So, I mean, of course, it's definitely an imperative today, I think.
Thank you, Vikash. Guests, any more perspectives, questions, suggestions that you would like to bring in? We would like to have that as well as a part of this panel on your thoughts. There goes. Can someone share a mic, please? We have one hand there. And one here, please, on the front table. एक इधर भी दे दीजिएगा. विकास, आगे.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Nandan Mal. I run a company called Hula Tech Recycling. Vikash just mentioned about it in his speech as well. I have two questions to the panelists. Really happy कोई भी अगर आप लोग answer कर सके. My first question is in terms of a growing organization. We are about a decade old and now we are growing. When is the right time, or how also, is when we move from a promoter-driven organization to a team or process-driven organization? And how, like, when is the right time to do it? Because even now in our organization, it's sort of a split. Most of the growth is driven by me, but the team is also involved. So हम कैसे करें कि promoter अलग हो जाए and that growth happens irrespective? And my second question is that, when you have multiple investment opportunities or offers, what are the key points we should be looking at while choosing between these multiple investment options? These are my two questions.
So I can respond on your first question. I don't think that there is any standard parameter to decide when you need to have a team and process, and that's very practical. Being an individual, you cannot carry everything and do everything. So as soon as possible, I should say that as soon as possible, when you start seeing a market for you, you should start hiring team. And process is something which should be there even if you are handling it independently. So I'll suggest as soon as possible.
And I would suggest process should be from the scratch.
Right.
Because that is the foundation from where you start with, and that starts your journey to the growth.
Right.
You also need to figure out what role you want to see for yourself in your organization actually. There are promoters who after a point of time have professional management to run their business and they act as an investor. There are even promoters who are actively involved in the business actually. So it's not only, definitely need to have a team. You can't do everything by yourself. And the larger you grow, you need to have more people on board and things like that. But you also need to be very clear how you want to see yourself and your role in that business actually. Tega, where I currently work, my boss, he's from the promoter side and he actively participates and he wants to take the company to the next scale actually. So we don't see him as a promoter, we see him as any professional CEO for that matter actually. So your thought process on this subject is what will give you the answer actually.
Okay.
And as regards to the selection of the investors, you should look at is basically your vision for your business and who should be the right match to help you to acquire your vision. Basically, you need to see what you are looking at your company to take it 10 years, 20 years down the line. And accordingly, you need to find long-term investors, or you can even choose stepwise investors. Means there can be a growth investor who can come at this point of time, who would look at exiting 3-5 years down the line, and then you can look for a larger investor 5 years down the line, who will help, who will be with your company for next 15 years.
Can I ask? Okay, sir, to both the answers I received. So of course, team has to be there. We have a team. It's growing. What I meant is key decision making, like at an operational level. For example, we are basically a reverse logistics organization, right? If I put it in simple words, where we collect back your scrap or waste, right? And then we process it. So as a reverse logistics organization, there are certain key decisions. Anyone who has a logistics background will know that every second or every minute matters in terms of, decision making there. So in that scenario, how to empower, what are the steps? Should it be like a budget based, okay, up to so much lakh rupees, X level of person can take a decision? Should it be time based? Should it be process based? How do you define the decision making pillar or hierarchy? That was basically what I was trying to say. And second, from the investment point of view, absolutely sir, strategic fit is you have to look at, but there are two things where I get confused because we keep on getting offers. There are certain people who are purely in it for the returns, who are financial investors, right? They do not want to get into the day-to-day or do not want to get into the strategy. They are basically investing in you because you grow the business. So, wo strategic fit हुए या नहीं हुए, I'm not sure. At the same time, there are certain people who might be from the industry or allied industry. Like for us, someone who is into logistics or someone who's into, let's say, metal recycling is a very good fit because it's a very good integration into our business. Someone who understands logistics will help us solve my logistics problems. Someone who does metal refining or recycling will help me get better efficiency in my recycling. But the moment that person comes in, then you lose control or you lose your ethos, etc. Vikash mentioned in his speech about what Byju's and Akash Institute. So that's where I get confused. That where is the right balance? So just if you can.
Shall I? So, very interesting. As the other panelists said, that promoter and process driven are not mutually exclusive. They are one and the same. Now, you said that मेरे को क्या करना है और मेरी टीम को क्या देना है और कितना देना है. It is actually the answer is with you. How much everyone is capable. Everyone is capable, and where in his journey or his or her journey he or she is today, and therefore how much you can trust them with the work which you would like to not do yourself and give it to the team. And on the issue of investment, I would say that this is, first I would write down, this is my requirement. This is what is important for me. And therefore, these are the eligible persons. If somebody who does not come, and if I have, belief in my business, that it has a great future, I would be choosing what I need. I'll write down this is what I need. This is the guy who fits in. Those who do not fit in, they will just drop by the sideline. Because my focus is clear. This is what I need. And if I have belief in my business, it has a bright future. There would be dime a dozen investors who would be, dying to invest into it. Thank you.
So look inside. The answer is there within you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sir.
So this is CA Vivek Agarwal. We all are talking about like governance and ESG. Like the BRSR reporting is compulsory with the 30 SDGs which is there. But how important is tone at the top? Because we are in East and it's promoter-driven companies are here. So tone at the top, most of the mid-sized companies, they are focused on growth, compliance, ESG, and that is not only in East, but Paytm was also a perfect example of that. Growth, but compliance and governance is kept aside. Secondly, when we are talking about mergers also, we thought that it's a strategic planning. What we'll get, like we'll get technology or we'll get something else. But many a time with many IBC cases which are happening, we are getting lost to save the tax. The promoter gives a verdict, we are buying this, you all manage everything else. So what happens to all the discussion which we did about the organic growth and complementing each other? So how will you take a 30-second view on that? Thanks a lot.
So we have.
I think the promoter needs to be here.
But that's a problem with being professional also and the leaders in the industry.
Yeah, I think as professionals, our job is that we say what is right and leave the rest to the promoter to decide. There may be reasons, and I know of a very reputed chartered accountant professional. उसने पैसा सिर्फ इसलिए इस तरह से बनाया कि आप ये मर्जर एक्विजिशन करके इस टैक्स का बेनिफिट ले लो. एवरीथिंग फॉल्स डाउन अल्टीमेटली. हर गलत एक डिसीजन लेते हैं हम एक गलत काम करते हैं, फिर वो स्लिपरी स्लोप है. वी डू नॉट नो वेयर वी आर गोइंग टू एंड. And when we have first problem, the skeletons will keep on tumbling down from our cupboards. एक के बाद एक, और वो हमें कहाँ लेके जाएगा we do not know. 3 साल पीछे ले जाएगा, 5 साल पीछे ले जाएगा, या पूरा खत्म कर देगा. There are examples, live examples in our own city where these instances have happened, and with very large organizations.
See, there's something called sustainable profits actually, आप जो बता रहे हो, that's a shortcut. It's more like, day trading कर लिया. It's not like investing for the long term actually. So I think we are talking too much of this promoter sort of thing. I see promoter to be a CEO who also happens to be a majority shareholder. So that person also sees value if he does the business in the right way. I don't see my boss anything different as a CEO actually. I worked in corporations like ITC, ACT, so I don't see anything different. It's a very objective discussion what we have. We have an ex-com who takes all decision. It's definitely time is the priority. A small organization, decision making is very fast for us. But yes, everyone sees a value. Even the CEO, the promoter sees value there in his business actually. So it's on the DNA of an organization. Like sir rightly said, as professionals, our job is to say, hey, this is right, this is wrong, or this is my view. When you discuss on the table, it can be that a third view emerges. That's a different point of view. But what I feel right, I should definitely put it on the table. And that's how people see value in it. And everybody wants to do the business the right way. It's in a DNA. So if you don't want to do business in the right way, then nobody can help you actually.
True. So from personal consciousness to strategy, we talked about attitude of collaboration, we talked about governance, we talked about what else? So we started with growth. Yeah. To come towards summing up of this panel, I would invite each one of us, if you have a message for both professionals as well as big companies about balancing the act, or if I may say, not at the cost of, so growth not at the cost of governance, but growth and governance together. And a message for both professionals and big companies, a minute each maybe, or 30 seconds, or whatever you would like to have as a message. Go from that side here.
I'll sum it up with a few lines. This particular poem inspires me whenever I feel low, and it's all about professional or even entrepreneurs actually. All of us must have heard this poem sometime. मुट्ठी में कुछ सपने लेकर भरकर जेबों में आशाएं, दिल में अरमान यही कुछ कर जाएं. सूरज सा तेज नहीं मुझ में, दीपक सा जलता देखोगे, अपनी हद रोशन करने से तुम मुझको कब तक रोकोगे. मैं उस माटी का वृक्ष नहीं जिसने नदियों से जल को सींचा है, बंजर माटी में पलकर मैंने मृत्यु से जीवन खींचा है. मैं पत्थर पर लिखी इबारत हूँ, शीशे से कब तक तोड़ोगे, मिटने वाला मैं नाम नहीं, तुम मुझको कब तक रोकोगे. So we'll all have that challenges in our lives. So it's a very big poem. You can go and find it on the YouTube or internet and read that. We will have all challenges in our lives as professionals, as entrepreneurs. But the only thing is how to remain steady, how to keep our conscience alive and keep moving in the right direction. If we can have that, I think pursuance and dedication and discipline, of course. We can have large visions, but if we don't have that discipline in our mind, I think that entire vision just elapses actually. So a vision is a must and dedication, discipline is a must. Then I think nothing can stop us.
Thank you.
Completely with you, Sharad, and I think, both growth as well as governance there should be a balance between it, and due importance should be given to both of them. I don't see, there are phases in business wherein you give more importance to growth, less importance to governance, and vice versa. I believe that they have their own spaces and accordingly need to be dealt with at different stages of your business.
Thank you.
I would like to give a message for a growth, we need to start with a vision. And I think to achieve the vision, we need to work on our strengths, to work on the organic growth, along with the CSR and ESG. And maybe once we reach a certain level of our vision, we can look at inorganic growth.
Yeah, thank you. Two things come to my mind, and one is that be open to scrutiny, because that's what helps us to become better. And the second is, and this is a Charlie Munger quote, is that the best thing you can do with your knowledge is to share it. Thank you.
So going back to that cow buffalo example of what does cow give and how does business relate to it. If a business is not growing, what governance can do? And if it is growing, governance doesn't do something, it's going to end up somewhere, not as a big business. Yeah. So thank you all the panelists and thank you all the guests for being here on our panel discussion 1. Let's give ourselves a good round of applause and then we begin our journey. Some announcements there.
Now I would like to call on stage Mr. D. Ashok and Mr. Vikash Goel. Okay. And Mr. Vikash Rungta. And Mr. Shyam Shomani. For the launch of our industry reports, along with the panel members.
We are launching some industry reports, so we can see the videos. So as part of our endeavor, we try to launch some industry reports every year. This time we are working on real estate industry report, steel industry report, and FMCG. So thank you so much for, and it's going to be circulated across to you as well.